Is it finally time? Is it finally time for us to stop over glazing DLSS? Hello everyone, how y'all doing? So today I am how do I say this? I think my time has come because I'm gonna be completely honest with you, what we're seeing so far is something that I kind of predicted would have eventually happened. So in case you don't know, there's like slides that were released for like DLSS uh, DLSS 5, and here's the thing, like this right here that we're seeing right now, I have not seen, like, when DLSS 4.5 came out, for the most part, a lot of people were very impressed by the end result. A lot of people were very impressed by how, you could run games at 360p, stuff like that. Like, the overall, the algorithm for upscaling did legitimately improve once they started using the transformer model. But now we've gotten to the point where it seems like, and to be fair, I think Nvidia did at some point advertise the fact that they did intend on essentially making more, AI rendering. I don't know if that makes any sense, and I think we're finally starting to see this. And let me tell you right now, this looks like ass. This, like, when I see this, you know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of Stable Diffusion. It legitimately reminds me, like, every time, for example, I Google something, like, if I, for example, type, in fact, let me actually show you an example. If I type Spider-Man and Batman chilling, I guarantee you there's going to be one result. There it is. It's gonna be like one result that's like AI generated or something like that. Like this, I think, no, wait, this is just a post from Reddit. But this is something that you'll often see. Like if you type something very specific on Google, it'll start showing you results of like AI generated images. And this is genuinely what it reminds me, except kind of worse, to be honest. Like, this looks very artificial, and the video that Nvidia released, this is just embarrassing, dude. Like what the hell is this? This doesn't feel real. It really doesn't. And to be honest with you, like, this sucks, but I think we're finally gotten to the point where I'm just gonna I'm gonna actually start to unleash something that I've been meaning to say for a while, which is we really overglaze upscaling. Like, I'm just being completely honest with you. Now, there's been some like drama with Threat Interactive and like a bunch of other YouTubers. And look, I'm just gonna tell you right now that like there's definitely some mistakes that Threat Interactive made, not in terms of like his arguments, but more so in terms of the way he behaves, like with some of the alleged copyright claims that he's made. So I'm not gonna say that he's like completely innocent, but I will say one thing though, is that I think that overall his end goal is something that I 100% agree with, and that is, and to be fair, I think that his perspective more so comes from game optimization, in which a lot of the rendering techniques that modern day video games use, whether it's ray tracing, whether it's nanite, whether it's, aggressive TAA and all that stuff, a lot of studios nowadays are focusing more on these more modern techniques and are overlooking some of the practices that used to happen in the past that in many ways can be educational for actually allowing certain games to be optimized. And I agree with him that, like, yeah, I think that there should be a discussion about this, and I do believe that, like, when people, focus too much on this like grandiose race of like ray tracing and upscaling, oh, will AMD and Intel finally catch up to Nvidia? First of all, you're delusional if you think any of those companies are gonna catch up to Nvidia. Nvidia is $1 trillion company. Like, we're not living in La La Land. But furthermore, to me, honestly, it's not just the fact that people are treating this as like some kind of race. It's the fact that people think that this is a race worth fighting, when in reality, I don't think it's not. Like, I don't think we should get to a point where upscaling is the solution for graphics rendering, for optimizing games, because this is what fucking happens. Now we're getting fucking borderline Stable Diffusion AI generated slop. This looks like shit. This looks like ass. I hate the way this looks. Dude, I want to play a PS2 game. like, I'm gonna be honest, I want to play a fucking PS2 game. That shit actually that shit actually feels like a real piece of art made by someone that actually wanted to create something unique. This feels like artificial shit. I hate it so much. And we all know that, like, you know, it's funny because, like, the idea of DLSS and FSR, especially FSR because now it's like AI accelerated, is that the idea of like upscaling is that it's supposed to, you know, help with optimizing the game. It's meant to allow the game to, you know, boost frame rates by running it at a lower resolution. But what's really funny is that there's one side of all of this that people often don't really think about, which is the fact that these upscalers, as they keep getting quote-unquote better, in this case it's not even better, but regardless if this is actually better or not, it's just going to increase the cost because, you know, it's gonna get to a point where, you know, like I'm I'm thinking to myself, like I'm thinking like a 2060 running this model, like it's probably going to take more computational power. And like, yeah, and no, I don't know if it's gonna get to a point where like this, you know, is more expensive than running a game native necessarily, but it is one of those things where it's like I don't know, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, over time as these models kept getting better, like the cost of actually running them is going to increase. And this isn't something that just applies to Nvidia. This is also something that I would say applies to AMD. Hang on, I'm trying to look for, I'm trying to see if there's like an article. It's like AMD announced like what was it, like FSR Diamond or something like that. Let me see if I can find the tweet. And like, I'm just gonna tell right now, I hate FSR Diamond, and there's a lot of reasons for why I hate it, and I'll get to in a minute. But let me just open the article. I think this is a reputable one. Yeah, I hate this, and you know, one of the main reasons for why I hate this is because it says here, next gen upscaling, multi-frame gen, and ray regeneration for. Okay, first of all, like, is this just going to be the direction of naming schemes for FSR? Just keep things simple. But that's not the part that really I want to focus on. This right here is what really worries me. Optimize for RDNA 5 architecture, because when I see this, I'm thinking two things. One, is this going to be exclusive to RDNA 5? Because if so, AMD, you clearly have not learned your lesson from FSR Redstone. But even if this does end up running well on RDNA 5, is this gonna run well? Like, okay, let's say hypothetically, like in some unlikely scenario that FSR Diamond ends up working with RDNA 3 cards, is it even going to run well? Like, look, RDNA 3, it has AI accelerators, but they're not that powerful. Like, if they're really trying to like create an upscaler that's optimized for like the next generation of RDNA, is this even going to run well on RDNA 3 or 4? And are they going to use that as an excuse to lock it to RDNA 5? I don't know. But again, it's one of those things where it's like, guys, we're literally making the tool that's supposedly meant to make a game run better, and you're making it more computationally expensive. And all for what? Like, I'm seeing all of this. Next gen upscaling, multi-frame generation, ray regeneration. Why? Why do you need multi-frame generation? Frame generation sucks. Why do you need ray regeneration? Well, actually, ray regeneration might actually be useful, mainly because there's a lot of, including, I think, Resident Evil Requiem, where if you use the game's built-in ray tracing denoiser, it runs like ass, and so unfortunately AMD has to have their own ray denoiser. I don't know how to call it, but like, anyway, there's like this image that was posted. Like, look at this code design for next generation of DirectX. I'm very curious to see what the hell this means. Are we gonna say DirectX 13? I have no idea. But like this right here, like multi-frame generation, next generation ML upscaling, neural rendering, dude. You know, aside from neutral textural compression and direct storage, which is probably the only two things that actually, to me, kind of matters, because it's actually something that I can imagine can actually improve the, because like for example, with neural textural compression, I assume this is supposed to help with GPUs that are more VRAM constrained. Direct storage, I think it's more so for optimizing for the like really high-end, really fast SSDs. That's what I assume. Regardless, these two are the only things where I can actually imagine my experience getting better. But all of this, dude, you're just copying NVIDIA's homework. AMD, have you ever thought and think that maybe not everything that the NVIDIA does is good? Because look, if you're just going to fucking copy NVIDIA, are you also gonna copy this? Really, AMD? Are you really just going to are you also going to copy this? Because at this point, dude, what the hell? You know what I mean? And look, I understand that like AMD, I don't think they really care about gaining market share. They're mostly just pitching a lot of this stuff for selling it to other vendors. They don't even make most of their money from GPU sales anyway. It's mostly from consoles. So like I don't think they really care about like overtaking NVIDIA or anything like that. You know, I assume that from their perspective, as long as they're able to make technology that's somewhat competing with NVIDIA, that's enough to pitch to a lot of people. Like, and you know, they'll also mention the fact that it's more open, it's whatever. It's like I feel like AMD is kind of on their own lane at this point, but like I don't really care because at the end of the day, this is what happens. And honestly, I don't know, like I don't really like, I don't know, this to me I feel like is born out of this like weird philosophy where I think people, first of all, there seems to be a lot of algorithms. There's just like this push for algorithms for making graphic rendering a bit more automated. I think Nanite is something similar to that. There's just and Unreal Engine in general, they just have a lot of tools that can sort of help with the game development process, where it like Unreal Engine 5 is essentially its own platform for video game development, and that's kind of cool because I think it does allow for a lot of like video games, indie games specific, to kind of strive. But what really upsets me about all of this is that I feel like by creating these technologies that are meant to like in this case in specific, where I feel like it's just, you know, doing its best, like, you know, AI fucking render the game's graphics to create what it assumes is real life. This doesn't look like real life, but like what it assumes is real life. And it's getting to the point where it's like the art of actually making character models, cities, and all that, it just becomes more of an artificial thing. And that's the one thing about like ray tracing, for example, that I don't like. Like I don't know, like this video from Digital Foundry, for example. Like there's this one scene. Let me try to remember. Like right here. Like if you see here, like I don't know about you, but like from my hang on, let me just remind you a little bit. Like I don't know about you, but from my perspective, when I look at these two, and I don't know if you guys are gonna be able to see what I'm seeing because the footage is most likely gonna be compressed, but the way how I see it, this just looks blurrier than this. Like that's all the impression I get. There's this one shot like right here, and let me mute this. Just let it run a little bit. Like right here, this is supposedly the superior footage, but it just looks blurrier. Like that's all it is. This just looks blurrier. And honestly, if you wanted me to choose which one I prefer to play, I'd rather play this one, because like while yes, I'm sure there's probably a reason for why this looks blurrier. I'm sure if you were to account for like the distance and the position of the tree or whatever, this is probably a more realistic quote unquote rendering. But like, dude, I want to play with this. This looks this looks more striking. This looks more vivid. This looks more lively. I don't want to play with this. This just looks blurrier. But that's the impression I get with ray tracing, is that like sometimes creating a more quote-unquote realistic lighting doesn't actually make it better. Like let me give you an example. I'm gonna show you fucking footage. Don't ask me how I got this footage. But this is a sorry, I didn't mean to open this. But this is an anime called Mekaku City Actors. Now you'll notice that around this area right here, like if we zoom in a little bit, like this right here, where the shadows, they look very thick. They look extremely thick, like around the ears and around the neck. This looks extremely thick. This is obviously not realistic. This is not a realistic depiction of shadows. But guess what? What makes this footage unique? It's a, you know, like when I look at this looks more interesting than this looks more interesting than this. What would you rather see? This or this? Like, because when I look at this, you know, it's not realistic. The shadows are not realistic, but it looks more striking. It leaves a bigger impression. Like, I look at this, I'm like, damn, the art style of this series is kind of fucking, it's kind of unique. Well, unique, you know, quote unquote unique. Like, obviously there's other series that have a very similar stylistic choice, but like, it's one of those things where it leaves you a good impression. It's not about whether or not it's realistic necessarily. And so that's the impression that I get with, like, because like I mean, upscaling is not necessarily the same discussion as like DLSS is more of like an image reconstruction thing, where, but like, I don't know, I feel like in the past the idea was that it was supposed to like allow games that are rendered at a low resolution to look better. And this is the other thing I also want to mention, is that I think a lot of people, they get really excited when upscalers get better, but like, I don't necessarily get all that excited, because what I think a lot of people don't tend to think a lot is that when an upscaler looks better, quote unquote, you know what this means? Like, for example, there's this one video where someone made a video. It's like let me see if I can find it. DLSS 360p. Yeah, it was a video from Random Gaming. You know, cool guy, but like, you know, when I watch this video, and a lot of people, I assume, when they're thinking of, hey, Spider-Man 2 at 360p, they're thinking, oh, you know, that's really cool. That means that upscaling technology has gotten so good that even if you render the game at an internal resolution of 360p, while it doesn't look better than native, you know, the mere fact that it's able to, and this doesn't even look good. To be fair, I don't know if a lot of it is because of the game's. I don't know if it's because of the YouTube's VP9 encoder that might be ruining the image. This actually looks kind of bad. Hang on. This actually looks really bad. Oh. Okay, this is not a favorable. This is actually not very favorable. I don't know. Let's look at this video from Vex. Maybe he has better footage. I don't know. Like, because I mean, for example, I've tested FSR4 at like ultra performance, and it is true that like, yeah, like the game's ultra performance looks pretty darn impressive. Like, I've even like in the case of, for example, with Pirate Yakuza, I actually thought that FSR4 FSR4 performance looked better than FSR2 quality. Like, it actually legitimately looks better. And so, you know, it's impressive, quote unquote. But a lot of the times when you say this, you know what this essentially means? It essentially means that video game developers, when they're designing their games, they're gonna think, oh, so you're telling us that if we target 360p, the game is still going to look good enough? Okay, we're gonna target this resolution. That's all you do. Like, that's all you mean. An upscaler becoming better isn't actually improving your experience. It's arguably making it worse, because you're essentially telling developers that, hey, we can now target lower resolutions for games in the future. And this leads to games running worse and looking worse, because you now have to rely on these, you know, lower presets of DLSS, which, you know, at the end of the day, it might quote unquote look better, but like, it's still not going to look as good as native. There's still going to be artifacts. It's still not going to look as good as it typically would when you play the game at like a higher resolution. You are going to see some artifact like the one you saw in this game. And again, I don't know if this is because of YouTube, but like, it's gonna happen. Like, we're going to see a lot. We're going to see this happen in some instances. And so, but this is essentially what you're telling to developers. You're essentially, this is the environment that this ends up creating. And what really worries me is that, you know, a lot of the times, the graphics cards that tend to quote-unquote need upscalers are the lower end ones. Like the 5090, the fucking 7900 XTX, 9070, whatever, a lot of these cards, they can get away without using an upscaler. And even when they do use an upscaler, they have so much compute power in terms of like the actual like raw performance, like the compute units or the NVIDIA equivalent. What is it like? Is it CUDA? I don't know. I think it's CUDA core, whatever. Like they have enough compute power as well as dedicated AI acceleration that it can run a lot of these models without a lot of issue. But once you start going to the lower scale of GPUs, like when we start going to like the 5060, the 9060, well actually the 9060 in my experience wasn't actually too bad with FSR4, but even then, like, you know, once we start going to like these lower end GPUs, like these ones, they have less compute power, and so they may not always be able to run a lot of these models as fluently. Like I'm thinking like the 2060, for example, like, you know, I'm glad that people that own the 2060 can use DLSS 4.5, but at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, bro, if video games nowadays are gonna take DLSS 4.5 into account, like I can't even fucking imagine what the experience for those guys are gonna be, because they're gonna have to rely on aggressive upscaling. And I don't know, like, are they getting a better experience with all of this? I don't see how. I genuinely do not see how, but this is the environment that this ends up creating. And honestly, it's fucking insane that we had to get to a point where we had to get to the point where NVIDIA is fucking making stable diffusion-ass upscaling that looks like ass for people to maybe start to not get very excited for upscalers. And honestly, we shouldn't. We should be excited for new technology. Like, this is, like, look, we've been dealing with this fucking ray tracing and DLSS war since 2019, I believe. It's getting stale. And like, not only is it getting stale, not only is it getting boring, like, I'm tired. Like, I am extremely fucking tired of hearing people talk about FSR, DLSS. This shit is just exhausting. Like, it's the same thing every year. Like, do you guys not get bored? And like, is this technology even getting more exciting? Because to me, it's not. Like I'm gonna be honest with you. The only thing about, like, the only upscaler that interests me are, well, first of all, it's like FSR and XCSS. XCSS, is XCSS open source? I think it's open source. I don't know. Like, I'm only interested in open source upscaling, and it's not even really because of video games. It's more so because a part of me is wondering if there might be a day where someone might be able to use this upscaler and the technology behind it to like make like a sort of like real-time upscaler for animation or film or something like that. Like, I'm like, that's the only part that actually interests me. It's not even video games, it's with film, because oftentimes film and animations are usually the ones that tend to, you know, suffer the most when it comes to not being able to run at a higher resolution. Depending on how old the series is or how obscure it is, it's very hard to find high resolution footage. And so those are this technology only interests me in this department. When it comes to video games, like, at some point it might have been interesting when people were thinking about the idea of, hey, you know, this GPU that usually would have been viable mainly for 1080p can now play at 4K. But nowadays, we're realizing, oh, no, it doesn't mean that. It just means that this GPU is still going to target 1080p, except now you expect it to use an upscaler. Like, this is just going to be this is just going to continue to be the trend. Like, when the PS5 Pro came out, like, one of the things that they advertised was PSSR. And look, PSSR, you know, PSSR had its issues. I think, you know, it was relatively competitive AI-based upscaler, and I think like there's a new version of PSSR that's like based on FSR4 or whatever like that. Look, I mean, look, I guess it's good that Sony has one, but like, dude, this is the thing that we're advertising, the not necessarily next generation, but like the middle generation, you know. This wasn't always the thing. Like, imagine if well, I guess the PS4 did kind of advertise the what's it called? Like, it did actually have some type of upscaling technology. I forgot the exact name. Is it checkerbox? Am I saying? Hang on. Let me Google. PS4 upscaling. There's a term for it. Shut up. Checkerboard. That's what I was thinking. Checkerboard upscaling. So, okay, fine. That's fair. It did actually advertise the fact that it had upscaling, so I guess now that I think about it, the PS4 Pro is not that much better. And to be fair, I probably do prefer PSSR over checkerboard upscaling, if I'm being honest. But still, like it's just boring. Like I don't know, man. Like this upcoming generation of like GPUs, they're just becoming less and less interesting. And I've gotten to the point where I don't even care about upgrading GPUs anymore. Like if I'm gonna do it, it's only going to be when the next generation of consoles came out, and that's because video games are then gonna start targeting those consoles. Like by that point, I probably will have to consider getting like an RDNA 5 and potentially Zen 6 CPU. But until then, and even then, when those things come out, I don't even know if I'm gonna get them like day one. I'm gonna really hesitate, because by that point, I'm not even sure how much am I even gonna be that, you know, invested in modern gaming when this is the future. This fucking AI slop nonsense. Like, I don't want to play games that look like this. Like, dude, I'm checking out if this ends up becoming the case. I'm just gonna play Blue Reflection for 1,000 hours at this point. I'm just gonna play the same fucking game over and over again if this is becoming the future. So yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm very disappointed. Very, very, very much disappointed by this. But then again, actually, no, it's not even really. I'm not even disappointed at DLSS, because look, Nvidia is gonna be Nvidia. AMD, they're gonna be AMD. They're just gonna copy Nvidia. But what I'm very much disappointed is just the overall discourse. It really upsets me, the fact that after so many years, we are not pushing the right discussions. We should not be discussing about whether or not Intel and AMD have caught up to Nvidia. We should discuss the fact that this shit is fucking dog shit.